We raised and brought housing together when we, in fact, made our bid. That's part of the bid to the Olympics. Of course, you know, all the issues like mental illness and addiction, they all actually are well subsumed within the housing problems. That's exactly what people need. This is really one of the most creative ways, I think, that we come up with to deal with some of the housing issues. We need to buy, or we need to redo some SRAs right away. We've got the Piccadilly and others that are in dire need, and we need to get money and put it into these SRAs. I think this will be a phenomenal legacy, Olympic legacy for this city, to leave housing for the homeless. I think that's something that the Olympics can achieve for us, and we can get onto it now and get people into housing right away. So I would urge you to vote for this. Personally, I cannot vote for simply an Olympics legacy fund, and that's it. We're going to have wonderful parties. Part of this is for cultural events, wonderful parties. People are going to Beijing. We're going to invite people here and probably be hosting a lot of people. But in the meantime, the homeless on the streets are going to be just watching all of this going on out in the cold. Maybe we'll give them a free ticket to something to go and watch it. I think it's absolutely important, crucial, that we indeed vote for this as a housing Olympic fund. And I cannot vote just simply for an Olympics fund so that we can carry on the fund without concerning ourselves with those who are in a very, very dire strait.
We're taking our first step here, concretely, by saying we want a commitment to housing in our city. Create the room within this Olympic Legacy Fund, add housing as the priority, because otherwise, when Councillor Anton says it confuses the issue, the only people that are confused are the citizens, because on the one side, the citizens hear lots of talk. We're doing this, and we've got this program, but there's no action. But if it's housing that matters, if it's the core fundamental need that we all talked about during the election, all of us, then you'll give it the respect, you'll give it the priority that you talked about during the election. You'll make the accommodation. And I'll remind you that by adding the words housing, staff then can undertake the work to report back on specific guidelines and uses of that fund. And that'll be, I think, a positive step that we can actually solve some of the problems that we have in our city.
To create the fund, the Olympic Legacy Fund, and to create homelessness as a focal point for that fund, I think is limiting, and I think that there's a lot more opportunity that every community wants to draw on from this fund.
So I think it's appropriate to put in housing there. It's got nothing to do with mental health, perhaps. The people could be very stressed out, thinking about being put on the street because of the Olympic activity. So I think it's appropriate, and it's not just any fund. I think it's speaking to the fact, it's a fact that people are being displaced from the SRO because of the Olympic activity. So I think we should be addressing that fact. And I wholly support you, Councillor Stevenson.
Well, I'll bet you the youth living on our streets, and I'll bet you the seniors living on our streets, and I'll bet you the families who can't find appropriate family housing at their income levels or on welfare would welcome this as something that they could get out of the Olympics. And I'd be willing, if I were a betting person, to bet that the citizens of this city, if they were offered banners, dressing the streets up, big events, or housing, everyone who needs housing in our city, they'd be happy to see money go to housing. That's the best Olympic legacy we could possibly leave this city.
If we look at the objective of each project like this, the Legacy Fund, the objective is clear in our survey, that encouraging citizens to participate, community to participate in the Olympic Games, ensuring that the Games meet the city's sustainability and accessibility objective, being an excellent host to those that visit the city. Let's focus on the objectives of this, and then for the housings, we have other programs and fundings, such as the Ken Bell's report, which is coming, and I look forward to that.
To help people get housing, the Olympics has helped many other communities in different ways, both direct and indirect. And particularly young people are helped through the Olympics through training and opportunities. And if you look at entertainment, culture, hospitality, catering, the opportunities are limitless. And if you speak to other communities, their young people have been certainly helped, but also at every level, people have certainly been able to find better housing because they have been employed. And certainly employment opportunities are a great part of our Olympics. And the Olympics, just the name Olympics, becomes a shorthand for better employment training, and better opportunities. And so I do agree with Councillor Stevenson that it is certainly an important part of the Olympics is housing, but we don't have to simply put the label on it. We can assume that it is part of the Olympic legacy. Thank you.
Okay, you're going to speak to the renaming of this fund.
Yes, I am. I want to make sure that as part of the Olympic legacy, we address the housing issue. I want to support this amendment.
This
I want
motion
you
is
to
about
support
a
this
name
amendment.
of the fund. We're changing the name. So
well, but it's more than the name. It's changing the purpose of the fund. It's making sure that the legacy or a portion of that legacy is in fact housing. And you seem not to want a part of that legacy to be housing. You want to have, bread and circuses, basically.
The motion, as put forward, is not merely a name change, as you've described, Your Worship. It's not meant merely as a name change. It's meant to change the purpose of the fund so that we can say, here's our priorities, here's where we want to allocate resources, and not just leave it at a name change. And so, Your Worship, perhaps that's for your benefit, some clarity.
okay. On the amendment by Councillor Stevenson, all in favor? All opposed? Opposed by Councillor Lee, Ball, Capri, Anton, Ladner, and Sullivan. Fails.
And simply to have a legacy fund by itself that will spend $20 million, $20 million on cultural events and so on, I think is inappropriate. It's a bit like Nehru, the emperor of Rome, fiddling while Rome is burning.
I don't want to establish a $20 million bucket of money that anyone can dip into as long as they can put Olympic legacy beside it. And if we can find $20 million to establish the fund, then I think we can sure as goodness find the actual money for actual projects without writing a blank check at this point. And I think that is repugnant to the people of this city, the way in which this council is now functioning. And I think it's not in the interest of democracy and certainly not in the interest of good governance. So you've rejected including housing in this. I understand that. I accept that. But what I can't now do is vote to set up a fund that you will simply then spend because it's there and you have projects.
Okay.
Your Worship, I'd like to call the question on this and let's vote.
All in favor of the motion of R? All opposed? Opposed by Councillor Cadron, Louis, Deal, Chow, Stevenson. It fails.